So here you can see a couple parts to a Bandura I'm making right now. This is actually one for one of my sons. It's a little bit smaller than usual. You can see here's the neck. This was all carved by hand, and eventually this will get joined, roughly speaking, sort of like this to make the final Bandura. All these parts are still a little oversized. This one's pretty rough. You can see a lot of tool marks and everything like that. This has basically just been roughed out. And something like this takes a really long time to do, and one of the longest parts is the procrastination, because it's kind of nerve-wracking to come down here, because one slip of the chisel and something like that, you can ruin the part, and you got to spend a lot of time figuring out how to hide it. That's one of the key differences between an amateur and somebody who's been doing something a while, is how to hide mistakes on things like that. So one of the things that I'm doing to fulfill that goal I was saying about doing things to be able to make a dent and make an impact on the Bandura community is to switch to some modern techniques for building. My degree is actually in electrical engineering, but they teach a lot of, you have to learn a little bit about all types of engineering. And so I invested in a CNC machine to do things. So if you look at this neck probably has anywhere from 5 to 8 hours worth of work in it to get it to this point, and it's still got probably another 5 to 8 hours before it's looks like something that I'd be willing to put on an instrument. This is the one that I carved out on the CNC machine. Everything is pretty much ready to go. It just needs some final sanding, and this takes about 4 hours to do. Now it does take roughly, I spent probably a good 20 to 30 hours writing the program and making the model in CAD to do this. But every time I make a neck now, it's only those 4 hours it takes to carve this out using the CNC machine. So purists might argue that it's just not right to make instruments this way. But at the end of the day, the neck doesn't really, it's got my signature on it. It looks, you can see the scrolls are very similar, but the machine did a better job than I could by hand. And while the art may not be in guiding my hands on how to actually carve the wood, it's something I know I can do, and the art has simply been moved to the computer where the CAD is done. And you can ask anybody that knows anything about CAD, and they'll tell you that this is definitely hard thing to model on. So this is the CNC machine I use to help me do my work, and it also helps pay for the Bandura experiments, because I make parts for other guitar makers and things like that. But basically you have a cutting tool on here that spins. It's a router, if you know what that is. And this is the control system. So the workpiece is affixed here. It moves around with this cutting tool on and cuts out the stuff. Here you can see a program for the Bandura neck that I just showed you. But like anything else, it's just a tool. There's sometimes when the right move is to use a CNC machine to do an operation. Sometimes it's 10 times faster to just grab a hand plane or something like that and make something a little smaller, a little bigger. I'm very pragmatic when it comes to that approach. If I think that the CNC machine is the way to go, I'll use it. If I think it's better to just do it by hand, then I'll do it by hand. So one of the things I also do is I'm restoring a Bandura for a friend. You can see it in the background there, and one of the things he asked for was to add an extra bass string, because there's only 12 bass strings on that. He wanted 13, so he could have a full C to C on there. So this was the original bridge. It has 12 holes in it, and this is the bridge that I made for him. And it's a combination of those hand and CNC techniques. I'm pretty quick with the modeling software nowadays. I was going to make it just by hand. I thought, you know what, I can probably whip this up faster in CAD than I can do it by hand. So I did that, and I cut out the main blank, and then it needs all the holes for the strings in it, and doing that would require changing a fixture around and doing all kinds of nonsense on the CNC machine, so I chose to do that by hand. Something else, it needs a new nut. It's obviously cutting a bunch of slots in this. It makes absolutely zero sense to do that on the CNC machine, so I'll be making the nut out of this block of ebony I have here for him, using pretty much strictly hand techniques. I probably won't use a single power tool on this.